Take it away.
Hello, welcome back to the Big Ten Show. Today's topics are going to be about Gideon Sa'ar, along with third elections that are
We're not sure about them, but
possibly coming up.
if they happen, they'll be the third ones.
And then something that's definitely coming up is the next topic of the Democratic elections.
Democratic primaries.
Primaries, right? For the primaries for the not prime minister, but the presidential candidate for the Democratic Party in the United States, as well as some world news, I guess, in NATO.
Right, sort of, yeah.
So what do you say, Gideon Sa'ar?
I say go for it. I know that you don't like him. I kind of do. I think it's important the Likud, one of their claims to fame is, and I think that they come through on this, is that they're a Democratic Party. In other words, they have a vibrant membership of like 120,000 people, which is the biggest party in Israel. And I think that primaries are good for a party. I don't think he's going to win, nor do I think he should win right now. But I think it's very good for people to have an opposition, to think about what's going to be the day after Netanyahu.
So I agree with you on that. I think.
But you don't like Netanyahu. But you just don't like the guy.
It's not that I don't like Gideon Sa'ar. I mean, I don't know him personally or anything. But,
Right.
I know his background. I know the good things he's done and stuff like that. I don't like the way he went about it.
I've heard a lot of Likud people tell me that. One person said that he's making the Likud into the Labor Party.
But the whole thing was that when he went out, right? The whole thing when he went out,
I'm taking a break.
I'm taking a break, and then he came back and he said, "No, I'm not going against Netanyahu. I have nothing against him." The first opportunity he had to jump ship, he jumped ship.
Okay, I don't see it that way because.
And he's shooting himself in the foot.
Well, he probably is. He may be. But the thing is, if Netanyahu was to resign tomorrow, he'd probably be the strongest candidate.
I don't know about that. The
Likud has to play to the whole state of Israel, not just to Likud primary voters.
I think what some people don't realize is, for example, Yuli Edelstein, right? So Yuli Edelstein, everybody keeps saying that why didn't Bibi train anybody? Why didn't Bibi make anybody, his yoresh, his inheritor or something like that? But in reality, the reality of the situation is, for the past 2 terms, that's exactly what Yuli Edelstein's been doing.
For himself.
Not for himself.
Bibi doesn't get any credit for that.
He doesn't get credit for it, but for instance, I know I sat down and interviewed Yuli, and one of the things he mentioned to me, because I asked him, what position would you want to be other than, the current position?
President. He wants to be president. He's not going to be prime minister.
So he said, I love this position. The reason why is because I'm like the prime minister. Whenever the prime minister isn't here, I'm the prime minister. Whenever somebody isn't in the defense ministry, they're out overseas, I'm the defense minister.
Okay.
And he switched in and out. And he basically took it.
So he got a lot of experience. But my feeling is this: it's been a number of years since Israel's had a non-Sabra prime minister, and I don't think that we're going to go and have. I know this might sound a little crazy, but he has an accent.
Okay, that's true.
And Netanyahu didn't have an accent, and Rabin didn't have an accent, and neither did Olmert,
so what
and
about
neither did Sharon.
Compared to Gideon Sa'ar, what about Nir Barkat?
I'm open to it. I think that Gideon Sa'ar has much more experience than Nir Barkat. Being a multimillionaire and being a nice guy who really has helped out schools and nonprofits by he gave out computers in Jerusalem school system and probably other school systems long before George Bush said no child left behind and all that. So I give him a lot of credit for that.
Right. You say he doesn't have that much experience. Maybe
I don't
not
think
nationally. But
that's what I'm talking about.
Jerusalem-wise, it's the holiest city in the world. Everybody has their eyes on Jerusalem.
The holiness of Jerusalem doesn't impress me. I mean, it impresses me, but not as a political.
There, you saw how he managed to actually have a coalition with basically everybody.
Right.
He had the right wing, he had the religious parties, he had the Haredi parties, the ultra-Orthodox.
I think Gideon Sa'ar is probably more in touch with people in the Likud, the Central Committee, and the voters who have to, the big wigs inside the Likud. I think he, as one of my friends said the other day, Gideon Sa'ar knows when members of the Central Committee purchase new underwear. He knows everything about them, and he's good at it. And you see, he's getting a lot of support from that. So anyway, I think it's all good. I think let him go against Barkat. Let them fight it out.
For sure.
But I would suggest, if you don't want to join the Likud, I would say join any political party, but join ones that are actually real and have primaries. So far, the only ones I know that have that are Labor and what used to be called Meretz, and now
Zeut had something. Beit Yehudi had something.
Oh yeah, they have. I believe that having primaries is a very important thing. Okay, what's next on our...
Wait.
Whoa, what? Tell me. Not so fast. You like to talk about
You didn't
Gideon.
even ask why I thought that Gideon Sa'ar was shooting himself in the foot.
Oh yeah, why is he shooting himself in his foot? Can I tell you what I think you're
What
going
do
to
you
say?
think?
You said because he came out first as the first Likud person since I don't know when to run against Netanyahu.
Well, you're right, since Feiglin.
But he didn't count. Nobody
And
took that seriously.
who shot himself in the foot last time? Danny Tanuk.
Look what happened to him. He ended up as ambassador in the UN. It's not a bad thing.
That's not a bad thing because
See, that's the proof. That's the proof that elections, democracy is a good thing because Bibi didn't want Danon around causing him trouble, so he gave him a very serious job, and he's proven himself to be pretty good.
For sure. I mean, he went in there at a very good time. I think also with Nikki Haley there.
Well, he was there long before her.
He was there before. Once she came in, though, he had somebody to play ball with.
Right. So
that's why I said he was shooting himself in the foot because I think he's
Gideon
pulling a Danny
Gideon
Danon.
Sa'ar doesn't want to be the ambassador.
He doesn't want to be the ambassador, but I think he's going in the same direction as what Danny Danon did.
I mean, I think the question really has to be that there's a side to be said for that Bibi has, this is sort of considered, being an apostate inside the Likud, but to say that Bibi his time has come, it's time to step down. It's not fair.
That's what I don't like. That's exactly what I don't like. What he was saying that it's time for him to leave. It's time for him to
so
step down.
so you will vote against him. But I
possibly,
think
unless he can convince me otherwise. If he can convince me, we should have him here, and then maybe he can convince me.
We could do that. I think that Gideon Sa'ar's argument is one that a lot of people are receptive to. Not enough for him to win, not at all. But I think
what he's hoping for is that he'll get like 20-30% of the votes.
That's probably what he'll get.
And then that he'll see that as like huge damage to Bibi.
Well, I think Bibi's already damaged. I don't think we need Sa'ar to do it. That doesn't mean Netanyahu can't win the next election. The whole thing is a mess, and whatever. It's literally beyond belief.
So let's move on to our next topic then. Since you mentioned the next elections, what do you think about blue and white?
Well, I think first of all, in Israel, there's a saying, third time ice cream, and that usually implies you see someone 3 times in a week or something like that. You're happy to see them and you celebrate by having ice cream. I don't think anyone in Israel, really, except for maybe, ad agencies, are right now celebrating the idea.
I actually don't find it to be that bad of a thing to have.
Well, someone in Haaretz wrote that the other day that, we're a democracy. What is everybody scared of? I think there's just an exhaustion.
Well, I was actually, I think I saw the same article. Right?
She tweeted it. I don't remember who it was, but she was like, we are a democracy. This happens sometimes. Okay, it doesn't happen often.
I saw her in an interview, and afterwards I thought about it. And, what do people define nowadays as a democracy? What would be your definition as a democracy?
Well, I would say equal rights, vote, free press.
Fair and open elections, right?
Yeah.
So here, in the past year, we're having fair and open elections for the 3rd time. How more democratic can you be?
I know, but there's a point of where there's a sense, and it's not even a sense anymore. I've actually spoken to people in the government, and they said, there's budgets that are not moving. There's people that need help, and they can't get the money, and this is not the way you run a country. So I think blue and white, I've always felt that they're not a real political party. I felt that Yair Lapid's party, Yesh Atid, was starting to maybe become one. But blue and white is basically a boutique party. It's like formed in a PR firm. They have a lot of serious people, but they don't share much in common except for one thing.
They have one thing.
They want to get rid of Netanyahu. But I was reading today about this fellow, his first name, I think is Shai. He's a big, he has a lot of background in high tech. There's a woman.
The one that's from Nesalian, I think.
No, that's Yoaz Hendel.
All right.
Or maybe there's another guy from there.
There's
this woman who is super impressive. I believe her name is Meir Cohen. Her last name is for sure Cohen. She comes from Jerusalem. She has done wonders for the elderly. She's obviously got brains. She's got guts, and she has management. She's proven herself. Having someone like that in our government would be fantastic. Why she's in blue and white, I have no idea.
I see. What I don't get with blue and white is why, other than Lapid, why are they so against Benjamin Netanyahu. He has done
he's
much for the country.
He has, but you can't rest on your laurels. And I think that the fact is there's 3 cases against him that are actually the lightest one. A lawyer friend told me that's the one he's probably going to fall on. Accepting gifts is simply illegal for an elected official. It doesn't matter if it was. We all laugh, cigars.
Right, but there's also a time period where it's already nicha already, but not.
Well, what do you mean by it's accepted?
Not accepted, but not only that, they also brought it up against him already in the 90s for the exact same thing.
I thought that was ice cream. Okay.
No, that was for the cigars. It was for cigars. It was the same exact issue.
Listen, I'm annoyed.
Back then, they didn't find him.
Right. Look, I think it's hard to be in power because every move you make is parts of it are defined by the law. I think you have to be careful. He is a smart man, and he should have been more careful. I'm not saying I want to see him indicted, but I'm just saying, not at all. But I can understand why there's people who their whole political being right now is, their whole political identity, everything is based on one thing. Let's get rid of this man. And then he's sort of like there's a car that just like breaks down on the highway, and until they move that car, nothing can move. Right. And I think there's a lot of people who feel that way. I disagree with them, but...
So you said he was smart, though, right?
What was smart?
You said that he's a smart man, maybe.
Yeah, but not on everything, I guess. I
saw something interesting, okay? Last night I was watching something, and they were saying about Bibi, they were saying, what's this issue? They're trying to convince the blue and white party to go with... Bibi will stay there for another 5 months. After that, they'll go in for 2 years. Right. Or 6 months.
And he was offering them big ministries, the biggest ones.
Yeah.
Defense, foreign ministry.
He laid it on the table for them.
And interior ministry. You can't do better than that. Laid it on the table
for them. So they were saying, they were trying to think, why are they offering this? So the guy said, look, I have no idea why they're offering it.
But they did.
The only person who probably knows in the world why they're offering it and understands why is Bibi. Other than that, we can't understand.
Look, I think that plays into the whole narrative of Bibi as political wizard, which I think most of the country believed until now he's tripped and he's fallen. He may be getting it back. In other words,
but I think it was still prime minister, though.
Well, that's the thing. I think it was genius that after the second election.
This is his 5th or 6th term.
The next morning after the second election, which was in September. In the morning, he didn't cry, be depressed, not get out of bed. He immediately had a meeting with the bloc of the right-wing and religious parties, and he tied them in, and it's worked. And that was genius. It could be that by offering blue and white, the whole farm and then some, which he really did. I was surprised when I read what he offered them. The fact that they didn't take that, if they don't become the next government, if Gantz isn't the next prime minister, there's going to be a lot of people, I think, who look back at that offer and say, what were they thinking?
They're relying on the people, right? They're relying on the people that voted for them, because the people, they believe that the reason why people voted for them was to get rid of Bibi. But at the same time, okay, so get rid of Bibi.
Polls have showed that they're right.
They might be right.
Polls show that they might get even...
they might be right, but right now, what they just did, they put Bibi as the prime minister for at least another 6 months, if not more. Because they didn't take the offer. If they would have taken the offer, they were guaranteed to get rid of Bibi in 5 months.
Okay, well...
So I don't know if the electorate is that stupid to think that, you had an opportunity to get rid of him.
I think things have to be simple and pretty black and white, not blue and white, but black and white when you're doing advertising, political advertising. And I think a lot of blue and white people would be very turned off. Those who are the hardcore, let's say, anti-Bibi people, to see that Gantz and the rest of them sat under Bibi in a government, even for 5 minutes, would sort of really be a bad move for them. That's what they believe. Right. For sure. I don't know if it's true. I think most people in this country are used to a lot of, worse deals than that, and worse agreements and worse compromises. And all of a sudden that everybody's so, standing on their principles, we won't sit with Netanyahu is a little surprising. I mean, I have to give them some credit for that. The fact that they turned this deal down with Bibi is something that is really surprising. I'm surprised that he offered it, but like you said, he may have his reasons. I imagine he may. Maybe he's setting them up for a big fall. If he doesn't get indicted in the end, and I mean he is indicted, but if he doesn't get convicted, this could all have been the beginning of him becoming prime minister for a lot longer.
Yeah, for sure.
Although they say the trial might last for 3 years, based on
up to 8 years.
Unbelievable.
Because of the amount of people that they have witnesses to bring in.
It's really quite incredible.
What do you think about what Lieberman said today?
Well, I mean,
the fact that he kind of to me it seemed like he just kind of said, "Okay, I give up." He said he doesn't believe that they can form a unity government anymore. He kind of like raised his hands. What is it?
They had one almost. I don't understand.
But it doesn't make sense. If
Look,
he doesn't believe they can form a unity government, so why doesn't he just go back to where he used to be in the right?
I think he likes being.
He likes to be the kingpin.
Yeah, that's really what it is. I think he's enjoying it, and I think he has nothing else to do because if tomorrow there's a government, why do you need him if you have, let's say, Lapid there?
Well, maybe they're hoping that the Likud will offer him the same thing he offered the Gantz. All the ministries and everything like that.
I don't think so, but I think the thing is if let's say you're worried or you're angry at the Haredi population and the community and their politicians, so you have Lapid, you don't need Lieberman. If you want a more, let's say, more to the left government, so you have Gantz. You don't need Lieberman, and he knows it.
The only thing he's been pushing for that other people have, but not as much as him, is civil marriages. I think most Israelis accept the marital system, and if they don't accept it, they go take a flight for a couple hundred shekels to Cyprus or something, get married there, and come back.
Look, it upsets people. I personally don't think. I think these things become bigger deals when politicians push them. Lieberman was very offensive when he gave an interview. I don't know, it must be 3 weeks now, where he really ripped into, both the Haredi community and the Arab politicians. I don't think he was really ripping into Arabs per se, but into their politicians. It's a mess. I think he really enjoys being this sort of. He's the deal maker. I don't think he has much else to offer.
It was a historical thing he just did. It was the first time this has ever happened.
Yeah, it's pretty incredible. This has only happened in places like Italy before, and I don't even know if other countries have had it, although I think Belgium also didn't have a government for like a year recently.
We have a government. It's not that we don't have a government.
Well, it's not functioning fully.
But they're going to have a budget. They'll have this, they have to figure it out, but it'll work. It'll just they won't be as wasteful, I think, maybe.
Well, dear viewers, just keep, we have no idea.
We have no clue.
Yeah.
Well, so, I
have a clue.
I think we'll actually go to a fourth election.
Oh, no.
And the reason why is I think unless Lieberman really comes off his high horse, he has to choose a side. He can't sit here in the middle and keep saying it's their fault, it's their fault. He has to choose a side. Or Gantz and Lapid, they'll get off their high horse.
One thing that people haven't been talking about is if Shaked and her gang, and let's say they convince the people who broke off, Ben Gvir, like if these people don't run again, and they run together, or so maybe the
about
right
2 or 3 more men.
Right, so that's all Bibi really needed. So
it's possible.
Yeah. So Hakol Patuach, as they say in Hebrew, everything's open. Right. What else is on our list today?
Well, let's go on to stuff that has to do with more elections, right? So
yeah.
What about the Democratic Party? Last week we
I don't think they like being called the Democratic Party. I think it's the Democrat Party.
Democrat Party. So I think last week we talked about Bloomberg, who decided to come back in. I saw now he's in some polls he's up to like 6% already, 4% average.
It's amazing what money can buy.
Politics. Yeah.
Look, Kamala Harris, I don't even know how they pronounce her name. I admit that I have a little bias towards her because, first of all, an old friend of mine from my hometown, shout out to Terry Ellis Ewing. She went to college with her, and I respect, and she's a supporter, obviously. And so and Terry is, it made me biased towards her. But also, I like her. I know this is going to sound nuts. I thought she has a great sense of humor. I like to watch her laugh. And also, she's pro-Israel, and I like that.
She has a good sense of humor. She is funny. Right. Especially when she's trying to attack somebody, she's really funny.
Yeah, she's a very funny person, and I think that humor, it is indicative of someone who's very, very. She's smart.
She's smart.
She's gotten very far.
She's very smart, but what I don't like, and one thing I really don't like, and maybe I am sometimes, and I probably take it out on myself pretty hard when I don't like hypocrites. And she seemed to me like such a hypocrite.
Well, you know what she struck me as? She struck me as someone who has her values and has hers, and then she has all these advisors. I read a pretty bad article about how her campaign fell apart in the New York Times this week, where basically she had 2 camps of advisors, one in the West Coast. I'm not sure if they were in California, or I think they were in California. I was about to say Los Angeles, but I don't know. And then the other is in possibly Baltimore, and they didn't get along, and this and that. And I think that this is a case. This happened to Hillary Clinton as well. She's smart, but she can't do everything, so she turns it over to people that she trusts, and they didn't really do a good job for her.
Yeah, they just went I don't know. It seemed like there was a total disconnect between her background,
Right.
I mean, she was a prosecutor, and she put a lot of people in jail.
Right.
And a lot of people for drug
on the
abuses.
left, people don't like that. I mean,
I know,
progressives really hit her on that.
I know, but that was the point. That's why I was saying she's a hypocrite. She put a lot of people in the jail for drug crimes. A lot of people.
Where's the hypocrisy in that?
Because she sat up in whatever in an interview or something like that, and she said, "Yeah, every now and then I like to lay back and like smoke a joint."
Oh, really?
It's
Yeah, okay, I didn't read that.
hypocrite,
Yeah. Right.
It's hypocrite.
Look, I don't know what she put people
And
in jail for.
even
I'm
now,
sure.
she talked about like that she was totally against this, putting so many people. She wants to get, reduce the amount of.
Well, I think that's an example. If I mean, look, I don't know her, but she's not a silly or stupid person.
She's not stupid.
And so
at all.
I'm assuming it's bad advisors who put together. And this is the problem with politics today. Is that and Benny Gantz is a perfect example. Going back to Israel, where he literally, I've seen so many pictures of him where he speaks with a teleprompter in situations where you'd think, okay, now he can just speak freely, and he doesn't. And that doesn't mean he.
That's why everybody always asks, what does he have to say?
Yeah, exactly.
What is he
It's all
thinking?
scary. Now, Kamala Harris didn't speak with. She didn't speak with teleprompters all the time, but maybe bad advisors led her down.
Right. I mean, she did have different stories that people definitely put in there and built up for her, in order to go on attack on Joe Biden, for instance, and stuff.
Right.
But she was never successful, which is very interesting to see because there's two people.
She started out very strong, and I know a lot of people liked her, and I know she was compared to Obama.
But both her and Cory Booker, which is surprising. It's surprising, but it's refreshing at the same time. Did not manage to get the black vote.
No, African Americans are primarily supporting Biden. A lot of that has to do with their experience with him, and
Right.
I've read some really good interviews about it. And of course, it's important. No community. I know the Jewish community usually is just completely in the pocket of the Democrats. In the primaries, I think Jews are a little bit more varied. It's great to see that African Americans are doing the exact same thing. They're like, we're not in anyone's pocket,
I
and
agree.
if you serve our needs, we don't care if you're black or white. I read that African American younger people, yuppies, students, professionals
I think
were voting. They were going more for Bernie Sanders, just like their Caucasian, colleagues.
Right.
So, what does that mean? It means that young African American voters or to-be voters are just like all young Americans.
Right.
They're primarily progressive.
I think it goes together with what we have here in Israel. Right? In Israel, we have this thing called post-Zionism, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think in America, even though people don't. I don't know why. I think the media just kind of tries to push it so much. I think in America, it's really become a state, especially in the past few years, of post-racism. I think Obama.
I don't know. Ask some African Americans. I don't think they'd agree with you. I think there's plenty of racism in America.
There is. What I'm saying is, I think what Obama did was, he definitely brought up the racial tensions. But I think because of the fact that he brought up the racial tensions, I think, especially in the African American communities, I think they realize that just because he's African American doesn't mean he's going to be good for us.
Well, I mean, I think they proved that before. A lot of African Americans were supporting Hillary Clinton instead of Obama, and there was this whole big thing in, I think, South Carolina where Bill Clinton was
more. I don't know why. I think
they kind of expected the blacks to.
I think
black voters.
also because of what's going on with Trump and the low unemployment rate in the African American community and the low unemployment rate across the board. I think they realize, oh, wait a second.
I personally never feel comfortable with the term "they" because there's like tens of millions of African Americans.
For sure.
And my experience in talking to colleagues
Everybody's
and friends
different.
and reading a lot is that African Americans might be proud and deservedly so that Obama was the first African American president, but I don't think it really weakened racism on a daily basis. And I think Jewish community now is experiencing this in a certain way
is a lot more
with violence. But the thing is, African Americans experience it in ways that are really kind of unbelievable to when you tell her. I worked with a woman who she mentored me in sales, and she was she was a super successful professional. She knew what she was doing, and she was a good saleswoman. She made a lot of money, and she rightly so. And she told me stories of being upgraded to business class because the woman had more miles than anybody. She flew nonstop. Getting upgraded, and then on the plane being questioned, do you belong here, and things that it was hard for her after a number of times to sort of just say it's not because I'm black. It's simply they would have done this to anyone,
Right.
And go and tell her now that Obama was president, so racism is done.
I don't think it's racism is done. I think it's like post-Zionism, right? Post-Zionism. It's not that Zionism is done, right? We still have Zionism.
Right.
But it's not the main point. I don't think it's the main focus in everyday life of whether it's Hispanics, whether it's African Americans, whether it's the Jewish community, whether it's Irish community. I don't think it's not there as the main thing anymore.
Look, I don't know what African Americans would say if you were to do a survey among millions and millions.
Neither do I.
I know that the America, when I'm in the United States, it does feel different to me. I for sure hear less racially charged or racially offensive statements from white people than I did when I was growing up. It's also because of age and everything, but
yeah, it became politically incorrect. I think people feel less comfortable saying stuff.
Well, that's good as long as they don't say. But the thing is, I'm talking about behind closed doors.
Right.
You know, I'm talking about when it's just a bunch of white people.
They might be afraid of a hot mic or something. You know.
Right. You know me. Right.
So speaking about hot mic, let's move on to the next topic.
Yeah.
NATO. What do you think about what had happened with the great Prime Minister from Canada?
To quote both my grandmothers would have said this, but one of my grandmothers specifically, if you don't have something nice to say, don't say it. I mean, those people, first of all, even if you're sitting in a cafe, you should be careful how you speak. All the more so at a NATO conference where, so that
where there's cameras everywhere.
Trudeau really stepped in it and asked for it. And, it's embarrassing, of course, for everybody around because although I don't think that Trudeau's all that embarrassed, but he could hurt Canada because Trump's that kind of guy,
I think for sure he could hurt Canada.
And I think that it's embarrassing for Trump personally, but it's also embarrassing for the United States. It's sad to think that people, they did this kind of thing to Netanyahu once. I don't remember if it was the same Prime Minister of France, but
how do we see these people that have a lot of power and they put a lot of pressure and they go out there? People tend to do this to them more often, and that's what Bibi did all the time, right? When he went to the UN and he held up this poster and to show how close.
It's become a massive joke for years now that look, I just think it was bad, it was immature, and it was childlike. I think there was also the part of on the lineup, the welcoming lineup for the royal family when they were coming into the palace, which I think it was interesting that. There was this thing where I think Princess Anne didn't know whether she should come in or not, and the Queen did something with her hand, and people said that she was telling her that she was not being polite to the Trumps, and that's not what it was because there was a reporter who then reported afterwards what happened is Princess Anne was waiting to be presented because they weren't part of the welcoming royal family lineup, and the Queen wanted to know when are you coming. So it was a mix-up. People used it right, of course, even the royal family, but they were using that as a
Trudeau was not a mix-up. That's
right, but somebody reported that as you see Trump again, blah blah blah. And it wasn't true. Just it wasn't true. So I think there's enough. Like I said, I think I said this last week. There's enough bad stuff out there. You don't have to make it up.
So what do you think about? What appears to be? I don't know if it was actually Trump's reaction or not, but what at least the media made it appear to be was that his reaction was that he's just going to leave,
fold up and leave
because of what happened.
Look, I think it's more like when...
You think it was right?
No, I don't. I think that you have to have a stiff upper lip. And it was embarrassing and it's inappropriate. And, I think what Trump should do, he'd get more defense out of the American media and American people if he would just be a little bit less emotional, maybe. And I think because a lot of Americans would be like, hey, you don't talk about our president like that. But he almost asks for it,
Right, but I think what he said was, for one, last time he just left, right? Or he didn't show up or something, he didn't even want to come.
Yeah.
And he said, I'm not going to come if we're footing the budget for NATO. Everybody else is supposed to pitch in. Nobody's pitching in. And now all of a sudden, there's an extra $60 billion dollars coming in from all over, from all the countries.
Yeah, I didn't follow the agenda.
It wasn't.
The thing that caught my attention was this whole. Look, it's always interesting. This is why people watch these shows like The Crown. Is like, what's it like to be in the halls of power? So this sort of little cocktail party, what do they talk about when they're there? Now we know
about Trump,
right? So it's not. I think it's an immaturity issue, and I think it's foolish.
It's interesting though to see. I don't see them doing it on anybody else. I really think it's because he's really pushed them. Thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed our video, please comment below if you have any questions for us as well. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel so you can hear more from us.
The Big Tent Show.